Hello, everyone. We are trying this for a second time. Welcome to episode number 14 of Exploring Genuine Transformation. My name is Lori Beth, and this is a show where I am interviewing coaches, healers, therapists, and thought leaders on the subject of transformation. And I have had a range of different people, men and women, and different topics so far on the show, and it's been a very exciting, there's been some amazing, beautiful explorations that have come through in terms of transformation for the sake of more freedom, for the sake of waking up, for the sake of feeling your body, being in your body, listening to your womb, being in empowered relationships, all sorts of topics. And so today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Renee Lashbrook. So I'm gonna try to have her come on now. And hopefully, it says that she's adding. I hope everyone's having a beautiful Tuesday. Really hoping that we're able to get her on. This is the second time we started the show, and it's taking a while. Oh, yes, it worked. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Do you have headphones?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Yay, we made it happen. Well, welcome.
I will just, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Lori. Thank you, everyone. I will just start by saying that it took me 20 minutes to even post about this morning. So there is a little theme in my life around, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And so there's this a moment of pushback. So yes, I want to do this. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and the world needs to hear your voice. So I'm really glad that you're here. So I would love to introduce Jamie for those of you who don't know her. I see some Port Townsend people on here, so thanks for tuning in. Jamie is a dear soul sister of mine, and we live together in Port Townsend, not together in the same house, but together in community in Port Townsend. And she is a wisdom keeper and a medicine woman, and I mean, I would call you a channel. And she does really powerful work that supports women. It supports everyone, but I think we're going to be talking a lot about women on this show. But to really listen to their wounds and listen to their bodies, and bringing back sort of our ancient knowledge and ways of of basically how to listen and how to live in harmony with ourselves and with the earth. And I personally have had the pleasure of experiencing some of Jamie's work, which I'm sure she'll get into more as the show goes on, but doing she offers breath work and Maya abdominal massage. And I know you have, name a couple of your pieces of work that you do.
Yeah, I do a lot of mentoring woven into all of that around the cosmology that lies within inside of us. And tonight, which we'll talk about later, I'm starting a 7-week program taking women through this initiation into intimacy and their cosmology through that womb channel. So
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can just say in the sessions that I've done with Jamie, I felt so supported in dropping into my womb and really listening to the messages that she has, and really noticed a huge difference. So, I mean, even in a couple of sessions. So I'm so honored and happy to have you on here today.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add as we get started.
Not really. I think maybe just a little background as to why this topic has come forward. So the majority of my work for close to a decade has been a hands-on practice as a Mayan abdominal practitioner. And what I discovered after listening to womb after womb and story after story, and most of them based in a lot of trauma, a lot of pathologies that I dealt with. I also dealt with a lot of mothers on their journey through childbirth and preparing for that in a joyous way. So it wasn't always that, but despite that, I started to hear a voice that was woven through each woman, and that there was this underlying cry around this wound that we weren't turning towards, and especially the women that would come to me around their fertility challenges and on this path towards motherhood. And I started to have these interactions with a lot of the souls that they were wanting to call into their wombs, the children, the child's spirits, the child's souls, and began getting information from them around why there are the fertility challenges that we're having right now, and how it's woven into our reproductive rights and the shadowy side of the reproductive rights, and then weaves into goddess culture and this whole idea around this old feminine cry of we can have it all, the feminist cry of like we can have it all. And I started to really listen to what that meant and how it was showing up in the bodies of the women that I was working with through a lot of pretty serious pathologies. So that's where my work began and where I have landed now with why I feel it's so important and yet so simple to say that when all women are authentically in their body, listening to their womb and following their heart, life will restore to balance again. And how we are at a really pivotal time right now as a collective feminine body, to take pause. We're at a pivotal time where either the earth will tip into whatever the earth is going to do, but this, our species are declining, and we aren't seeing many resolutions. We're seeing more decline in life, and we're seeing also an increase in feminine power at the same time. And so I'm really interested in that relationship and how we can take pause and look at what we need to start listen to what we need to start looking at, I should say, around where we've come from, where we're at currently, and how we have this choice point now to really step into something of true power, of true healing, of true unity, and true restoration of life itself on the planet and within our bodies.
Beautiful. Can you say a little bit more about, how you said that you see the feminine rising and coming into her power, and the earth is declining, and how you see the relationship between the two?
Yeah. There are some statistics I was reading earlier around, and I have some right here. I kind of wrote them down. I have a poster next to me that no one can see that I've been using for some demonstrations, but that women now are Western women. So I really want to clarify when I talk about women that I'm right now, and we'll get into this later, really speaking to the dominant Western, privileged, mostly, and I will say white, woman. And how we are, the shadow is we're claiming all this power back.
Yeah.
Yet we're not really understanding our own dynamic, what power is. And we're rising in economic strength. Yeah. Women are in office, women are taking charge of corporations, and there's all kinds of women online doing mostly beautiful work, this rise of entrepreneurialism, a lot of it based in goddess culture and goddess kind of language, feminine revival, feminine uprising language, reclaiming of power. And so as we're doing this and we are rising in our economic strength, the earth is in decline. So I'm looking at that relationship where if women were truly authentically in their power, really harnessing the power from the heart, from our womb bodies, the earth wouldn't be in decline. There would be a rebalancing of life because the feminine principle is life inclusive. It's not anthropocentric. Excuse me. It's not, hey, I need to do this and therefore my rights come first above all else. My voice, my thing. It's like, wait a minute. I do have a gift to share. And that gift, that authentic gift, is what is here to support me in all of the abundance that I am here to experience in my life. And it also supports life. And right now, our choices, our reproductive choices, our choices in, well, many of our choices in spending, our choices in how we raise our children are not life inclusive for the most part. And I only say this because I've seen this repeatedly with the women that I've worked with. And a lot of those women are of the ilk of, I have, a client who comes to me and she has a very successful online practice and she is suffering tremendously.
Yeah.
She's suffering. Her health isn't good. Her family life is unstable. She's asking for support, yet she stepped forward and she has it all, quote unquote. She's popular. So I think there's something to be looked at there, and not to be harsh. I think it's really important to find resolution, find that space inside of us that holds the compassion and understanding of how we all got here. And the necessity of us, in order to let go of the structures that we really don't want to be a part of, to come together in unification. And we're not really doing that.
Yeah.
We're saying we want to do that, but then we're going and we're creating a business out of it. We're saying we want to, we're taking things that are being gifted to us right now as a collective feminine body, these transmissions that are opening within us, this ability to really feel into the life force, reclaiming our true voice, the privilege to be able to walk that path. We're taking these, and I'm seeing that we're quickly turning them into something. We're objectifying and commodifying ourselves. We're like, oh, ancestral healing, oh, womb healing, boom, I'm going to turn that into a thing, and I'm going to sell it, and then you're going to turn it into a thing, and we're all going to have this money and this abundance. Yet we're still going to be sitting behind a screen and separated and actually not really living into the virtues that probably nag at us in the back of our heart when we lay our heads down at night. We know that there's something wrong. Yet we're not willing. It's not so much that we're not willing, we're still afraid to let go of the structures that have been supporting us, which are the patriarchal structures. And if I was the wounded patriarchy and I wanted to maintain power and I saw women rising in power, you better believe I'd want to put them in offices and positions of power, because that is what keeps that hierarchy turning. That's what keeps it fed. And we're not seeing that we are playing into the very system that we really don't want to be a part of by fighting it, by feeding it, by stepping into positions within it. And forgetting that we have the inherent wisdom, especially, we have the inherent wisdom. Every woman across the globe has this wisdom, but we have the wisdom plus the privilege at this time to go, wait a minute, we forgot how genius we are. We forgot how to use that genius and that gift for the greater good of humanity. We forgot as a collective body of women that as a woman with a womb, We came in with an oath to uphold life in our bodies, in our life, for the body of the earth, for the bodies of others. Like, that is an incredibly beautiful path and a privilege. So what does that really look like? And if life is falling apart around us, I guarantee you we're out of alignment somewhere.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of that. It's just beautifully said, and also you just feels like you really, like, I really get how what you like everything that you just shared is the shadow side. It's like how you see the shadow side of goddess culture, which is the topic that you chose to speak about. That we are extreme. You're naming all the ways that we are really out of balance as women, but also as, like everyone, the entire earth, like all humanity, we're all out of alignment.
Yeah.
And so, I think what I'm curious about is, because it seems like you're naming the shadow, and you're naming, we could say, the problem, so to speak. And I'm curious about what your vision is, or what your ideas are about how to, shift this into something different. Even taking examples such as women rising in power in the entrepreneurial space, and like you said, creating a course that maybe does, like, it has its roots in the feminine, and it has its roots in that harmony, but then it sounds like, in your opinion, it sort of becomes another commodification, and kind of how to not be in that trap.
Yeah, that's really, the main ingredient, I think, to being able to do this well is we have to come together, and that's mostly in person, definitely online to have these conversations, but really in person, so we can begin to trust each other again. There is a seductress, the goddess has many faces, and we as a culture really love the shiny and the pretty. What does that remind you of? It's objectification. It's like, oh, that's the only face I really want, and that's the face I'm going to put on. But there's many different faces, and the seductress is really potent. It's the one that gets in, especially through online social media and pop culture, that sends our adrenaline up a little bit, and it's like, oh, that feels so good, I'm going to do that. And so I think that where we have to take pause is letting go of control, bringing our voice out, and then literally, if we're in alignment with our heart and in alignment with our gift and our virtues, really letting it go and not hanging on to it. It's like boundaries with a child. You're like, okay, what does this need? What does this thing I'm tending need in order to be nourished and rested and fed and good for the planet and good in community and a well-established individual? And then where do I let it just go and be its own thing and trust and not, so it's that delicate balance.
Well, and it also makes me think about, just in the online space, since we're using that as an example right now, how, like, I'm curious about your ideas about money, because, people, right, like, a course is created, and then there's a lot of hype about making more and more and more and more money, right? And that somehow that means that you're successful and that you're helping other women to be kind of financially sovereign, which, this is a question that I have in my own life. It's like, there's a power in that, and that can feel really good. And where does it become out of balance? And also, it comes from the patriarchy in the first place, right? Because we're living in such a way that, like, we have to, like, it's like we live in a capitalistic culture that where, like, I need money to survive, and I will feel better if I, don't need to rely on anyone else. So, just all of those questions come to mind for me, or all of that complexity.
Yeah, this is a current initiation I'm going through around money and that word abundance. And I'll just tell a little story. I was going to be involved in an event, and lovingly, one of the organizers of this event, and I won't name names, wanted to have a contract that stated if any of the participants in that event wanted to work with me after the event, and I was going to be one of the teachers, I would owe her a commission. And I sat with that for a minute, and the part that I didn't really, it really hit me, that set me back, was the language of, oh, this keeps the abundant flow. And I hear that so often. It's like, oh, here, do this thing, and then, take the commission, rah money. It keeps the abundant flow. And actually, it was a chokehold, because what it says is, I don't really trust my gift to just continue to cycle through. So I'm going to try to control it by controlling what you do, which is hierarchy, which is, wounded patriarchy. I think for me right now, redefining wealth, what true wealth means for us.
Yeah.
What really matters to our life and our hearts. What is in the long game going to nourish us and sustain us. And yes, we need money. I'm not saying, absolutely break down and turn away from the structures that are here, but how much do we really need? What is having it all? Like, if we really want to redefine having it all, what does that mean to the heart? What does that mean to your womb? What does that mean to the earth? And can we live with less in the structures that we are entrapped in, so that we can have more to what actually tends a solid foundation? And this, again, requires us to come together, because as a lot of the women who have built these empires, and I've already seen it, there's a little bit of nervous energy in the atmosphere of, like, there's this sense of, like, almost having to grasp all of a sudden and push, because they feel like there might be something that is going to crumble a little bit. And we all need each other, because when we start to break these structures down that we're all on, myself included, I mean, I'm talking to you online right now. Yeah. Which is really incredible. So there's a balance, but we need to be able to hold each other, because there's so much tending, there's so much wounding, and it's really about the women coming together so that we can hold each other, start to trust each other, and then we start breaking down, all of the competition that we have, the distrust, the sneaky behavior, the manipulation, manipulative speak, seductive speak on the internet, of that I see out there that doesn't have a lot of authentic voice in it. It all kind of sounds like the same thing. The online programs that are like, hey, I'm going to sell this thing, and I go through, and there's an energy to every single one, and I can't find the woman in there. I can't really hear her. It feels like that other thing I just did, and like, oh gosh, I need that. Oh gosh, I need that. And I feel myself getting hooked. And the minute I feel myself getting hooked, because what it does is that language hooks into the part of me that feels like I don't have the worth. It hooks into our wound. And that's seductive. That's tricky energy.
Or I'm thinking it hooks into the part that feels like we're not enough, and there's something to get, instead of actually, instead of like what I think your work really is. It's like, it's more of a, like, dropping down, like a depth into the earth, to the womb, to our hearts, to simplicity, to like, oh, I'm actually perfect as I am now. And, that there's nothing that I'm trying to, like, climb up a ladder to be.
Yeah. We come out, it's sad that we still get trapped into objectifying ourselves, and it's really, it's so deep in us. From our path in choosing fertility, even objectifying ourselves as mothers, like, you have to look this certain way, and we're building this persona and you know, identity around it and forming ourselves to it, because we don't feel, because our worth is so wounded. And that's why coming back into the womb space, connecting with the earth, being together to reclaim the true cosmology and the true gift within each person. And I know this sounds like lofty new age, and it is very privileged language to be able to say, hey, I get to dive in to my feeling body, look at my wounds, and bring out my gift in the world, you know. But that's actually it. The thing is it's not an easy path. It's not actually something to commodify, because if you're really doing that, if you're really listening to your heart, it will send you into corners of life where you have to tend your wounds, but it will likely deconstruct the life that you're living for the life that you are actually craving and came to live. There is a lot of letting go. It's not really a gaining of things. It's right now more of a lot of letting go of things. And nobody really wants to let go. It's hard work. And the reason we need to do it together, and this is not shaming, is because there might be on our way down some like, oh, embarrassment. Oh, did I do something wrong? How did we all get here? But no, we're all part of the same wound. Like underneath everything, we're all part of the same wound. And if we can remember that and come together around that and do the work around that, then...
I guess I'm still sort of in this curiosity, I mean, around this entire topic. Like we were talking about, for example, you know, the online space and kind of the commodification that can happen there, which I do want to name that I think there's also people on there that there's not that kind of commodification. That's
Absolutely
really coming from a true depth. And I know for me, that's how I feel those people who I feel like are actually, you know, there's not a selling. There's actually, it's just an offering, and it's an offering of their gift in the way that you're talking about it. And obviously I know you're about to do a 3-month online course. And so you're not completely saying like, like, let's get rid of this. But even in that example, again, I guess I'm curious about like, where is the balance? Because that's what I really hear you talking about. And like, even when you were just talking, similarly, when you were just talking about kind of like talking to each other and finding a new way, I think that just as I listen to you and know you well too, and have been in these conversations with you, it's like, I just have this I don't think there's a direct answer to my question, because I think that we're actually in the exploration. But I think that is, the question is like, okay, how do we do this in a way of integrity with ourselves, with our bodies, with the earth? Like, how do we hold, you know, how do we like allow, for example, the technology that we are able to use, or the voice that we can, you know, like we women can have this, really, women and men, but we're speaking more about women right now, you know, can have a voice and, you know, be in our truth or in our power, and in our softness and in like, you know, our receptivity and all of it. But how do we kind of, I guess, that's the sort of inquiry, is like, where is that balance point, and where is that balance point for each woman, right? And, you know, I know for you, some of it is like creating the collective in this community, women's collective in this community, like, you know, in community, like, we actually do need less when we're in our small community. People need less because there's actually more abundance in the time that people can spend with one another and kids, and, you know, life has a different rhythm here. But like in the hugeness of the world, where there's just, you know, like big cities and, I mean, just everything that we're up against, it feels to me like I'm like, I love it. And I'm also like, whoa, it feels like, you know, it's like, how do I do that in my own individual life is one exploration. And then how do we kind of do that in a collective sphere? And I know there's not an answer. I'm sort of speaking to the different pieces, but I'd love to hear more of what you have to say about it. Something's ringing.
Do you hear that ringing?
Yeah, it's time.
I'm telling you, there's really something that wants to interfere.
It's funny when you first said that earlier, I thought this has to do with something about your talk because we couldn't get onto Facebook earlier. We couldn't get on. Like it feels like it's something about like what happens with technology and how that relates to your topic. Do you have any idea how to turn that off?
No.
Thank you, everyone, for holding tight. Interesting.
I find this really fascinating.
Totally.
Okay, let's see.
Okay.
It says you're calling me.
I can do something. Okay, is it better now? I can see what's happening.
Okay, we're going to figure this out. Well, let's just keep talking if people can hear us.
Yeah, I think if people can hear us, can you let us know? Sorry for the interruption. We really are having some pretty major technology issues.
Yeah, and I think it's because one of our joiners tried to accidentally call me, and it's now stuck in limbo, is what it's saying.
Oh, I see. Well, if you are that person that accidentally called Jamie, can you please hang up? Oh, yay. All right. Well, just for the viewers, I have been in the process of putting all of these on a YouTube channel, so we'll be able to edit that out.
So how do we find the balance, which is where we were?
Mm-hmm.
Well, first, we don't let little things like that shake us up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, it is per each woman because we all have our own set of values and virtues. I think, first of all, understanding that our words cast spells, and that first and foremost are those spells are felt by our own physical system, our physical system, our metaphysical system, our spiritual system. And there's a lot of cliches and platitudes out there around, you know, we are all one, and, you know, I'm for the earth, and we're all connected, and, you know, all of these things. And if that's really truly what's coming out of our mouths, are we living in alignment with all of the things that we say? So that's where we have to start, and that is per individual. Because really, and this is hard because we're all in this together, and this is where we have to come together. If we were really in alignment with that and knew that we were all connected, we would not be making the choices around reproductive rights and our careers and the health of our bodies and our spending habits. All of these things, we wouldn't be doing that. We really wouldn't, because we would understand the impact. And if the earth is suffering, then we don't actually have the freedoms and the connectiveness and the things that we say that we do. We just don't. So starting with your virtues and your values and just being gentle. Like, where can you do a little bit better? Being honest, going, yeah, there's some truth in that. Where don't I listen to myself? And everyone knows where they don't listen to themselves, because it usually shows up in illness in the body. It shows up in illness in your life. I mean, if there are things out of balance in your life, it's because you're out of balance. You're not in alignment with your truth. Yeah, absolutely. We as women are, so intelligent. And I wrote this in one of my blogs. recently where a dear man in my life said, I know women are the most intelligent species, or he said, they're the most intelligent species I know. And if they all followed their heart, life would restore to balance again. And I heard the ask in him. It was more like, I need that from the women, because you are the keepers of the earth. You're the ones who set order and balance. And if you're really following your heart and your virtues, and you're trusting yourself, and you're doing that deeper listening, then everything else will start to fall in alignment, because it listens, it wants to hear. It's like, I think there's so many different directions I can go right now. But this story that we're looking at is also connected to this greater story around the planet. Like, maybe the reason that we're all kind of digging into and taking is to catalyze her voice out from underneath us and say, hey, no, wait a minute, enough is enough, so that we can all go, oh, that's right, now that I hear you claiming your authentic voice, I know where I can stand, and now I trust that you're going to actually take care of you. And that, like, okay, now I can take care of me, and now I see how we're connected, and now thank you. You know, there's a lot of different wounding. That's like a big mother wound that lives underneath all of us and within us. So the balance starts there. And then I think it's just do more in-person work. You know, in a city, I was talking to one of my clients, and she did this beautiful wind walk that I had her do. And she came back and she's like, you know what I realized is I don't know any of the people in my neighborhood. And that she wanted to shift that. And just because you're in a city doesn't mean you can't have community. And you don't even know what true wealth can feel like. We can't reorganize and redefine our ideas of true wealth until we start to go into those places that we long for: connection with others, intimacy with each other, being with the earth more. Do those things, even though they're not, and this is why they don't get done, because they can't be commodified. True, authentic connection, the things that really nourish us, we know we can't commodify, and we try. We're like, we're hesitant because, like, well, what is it going to get me? You know, there's still this part, and it's like, well, you will be supported. Try it out, because the oath back from the earth and life itself was that there is enough, and you are fully supported when you are walking with your gift intact, when you are doing this deeper work. And you can't see that in action until you try to connect, gather a community, ask for help, share your stories, and see what happens in your life. See what healing catalyzes in your life. And then you start to develop trust with a different system. And only until we can start to really develop trust with that different system can we start to back away from the system that we're all entangled in. And this is courting the divine. I mean, this is truly what courting the goddess is. It's that, oh, how much will I allow myself to be held by the life that I took an oath to being in relationship with? And that's through the womb. That's all through the womb channel, physically and archetypally.
Yeah, I mean, and what you're sharing, it's so beautiful. Thank you. It's really touching, especially that last piece. I mean, what you're sharing makes me think of, like, you know, you're both saying, like, we have to question and really look at in our own lives, and with our sisters and with our community, you know, with our brothers, with our communities, you know, okay, what is actually serving, and what's the impact of doing this action, or, you know, going in this direction? What does it feel like in my body? What does it feel like in my womb? Right? Like, what is the impact? Like, exploring that impact more, while also making, and then, you know, in addition, making new decisions that, and new choices that maybe, you know, we've never made before, or feel scary because it's like, well, how am I going to make money then? Or, you know, if I'm following the goddess, or I'm following the divine mystery, but this is what feels right, but it makes no sense to my logical mind or to what I've learned. You know, it's like taking those risks and then seeing what the impact is, you know, seeing how that actually you know, affects our bodies, our wombs, our hearts, our relationships, you know, how we live. So it seems like it's a combination of both of those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the body is always going to tell us where we're out of alignment. I mean, she is our ally. And the other piece of this that I want to talk about is, from my cosmology, my soul knows that it's in this time of material necessity to support my life, the roof over my head, thank goodness, and actually the vehicle that I still, I mean, I don't have to, but kind of have to drive, and you know, that I don't have a garden that I'm completely eating all my food from yet, and
Mm-hmm.
but there is an intelligence that we cannot ever really know or name. I really feel like if we ever did, it's that mystery intelligence, we would cease to exist. But
Mm-hmm.
that knows that we are here in this time and is ready to support us in that. It's not about trying to live in a way that was 200 years ago. It's about actually understanding that dynamic and being life inclusive at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That there is that support mechanism that will come into place when your gift is coming forward. Again, that gift, that authenticity, that true voice that rises from within our body, and how we find balance is going into that compass every day. Am I experiencing, you know, disease, illness, excessive emotion? Why? And then being brave and looking at all the pieces of my life when my body is speaking and going, where am I not living in alignment? Where can I stop? And then going, okay, if I do and I realign, then I also trust that I'm going to be supported, even if it means that I have to take a break and sleep for 3 days, or I have to not do the one thing online I said I was going to do, or I have to not show up for that, whatever that is, you know, a lot of no to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, I've been in this process as well. So
Yeah.
deeply. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit also to, you keep, you know, using the word like our gift. And you know, we were talking about the commodification that can happen kind of on the online world or even just in our times. And it seems like that also can become commodified. Like, oh, my purpose, my gift. So I'd love to hear, you know, I mean, I don't know if you're in agreement with that, but it seems like it's this kind of big buzzword, right? And it can feel kind of lofty. And so I'm wondering if you can kind of speak to what you mean when you say, you know, really living your gift and how that relates to being in, you know, harmonious relationship with self and community.
Well, from what I've learned through my own trials is that the voice that I have inside, what inspires me, the way I express my gratitude for this life is my gift, for one. That's how I express my gratitude for this life, is by sharing that gift and saying, I know what you gave me to share, and I'm going to bring it forward, because in that is my healing. It's also, life abhors a vacuum. You know, it is also for the people. And so there will be a celebration. A gift is not something that you acquire. Can be tended. It can be added to. You know, I'm learning there's a relationship with my gift. It teaches me as much as I inform and allow it to do what it needs to do. But in the world, how do I want to say this? There's something around permission. And with the gift, you don't need any permission or initiation to bring your gift forward. There are a lot of things we're going to learn in life. You know, some might go to universities. You know, I've been certified in certain things, but all of these should be to enhance my gift, not to be what I hang my hat on, because I will constantly, if I'm trying to be in alignment with myself, be taken off course to come back to what life asked me to do. It's not an easy path. It's not lofty, and it's not something that can really be sold. It's very tricky because it's just, hey, can I trust that I'm going to put this out there? And right now, ask for some remuneration, because we are still in that dynamic. But to teach the art of that in others, I think where we get stuck with the gift is we create like a certain program, like, oh, here, I'm going to create this thing, and then this other person's going to adopt this protocol and this program, which essentially robs them of the very thing that I actually need from them. I need them in their authentic gift. I don't want people repeating what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what gets tricky. That's that big, huge letting go of like, okay, I'm going to hold this space, and I'm going to share and hope that it inspires the gift in others. Ooh, and that means they might leave my altar. Well, thank goodness. You know, and then I have to trust that somebody else will come to that space rather than this grasping for and trying to control people. But you don't need permission. There's right relationship, which is different. You know, the gift does need to be cultivated in right relationship, and that means right relationship with all of life. If you're really authentically following the path of finding your gift, then you have to do that deeper listening to understand your cosmology and your ancestry, which then we can start talking about how that heals appropriation and really honors and owns our privilege, and also does profound things for our ancestral wounds, rather than grasping for other things. And then we can be in right relationship for all of the other teachings that we want to invite into our life to inspire our cosmology, not to completely adopt. It's messy. But because we have the privilege, I mean, again, this comes back to privilege as women and privilege as people, Western people in the global North as a whole. We have the ability to listen and do this. And in a way, when we do, we can almost rewrite our own trauma history. You can send that back and go, okay, maybe my ancestors landed on this, in this place, in a not in the best of relationships, you know, taking. And how can I arrive again? How can I re-arrive in this time right now with the codes of my ancestors in my body? Okay, well, I can understand how to do that, and I can approach this land every day a little bit differently, and that is by listening to authentically wants to come through me. The prayers that I feel my ancestors spoke, the prayers that I get when I sit next to a tree, and trusting that you have permission to do that, because it's part of your gift.
Yeah. Well, and you said this a little bit, but I just want to add that I love the way you describe that. It's just, it just feels really in alignment with also that deep listening, but also that our gifts are often, that gift is often something that, like, sometimes we're not actually that excited about what our gift is. Like, it's not, I mean, my gift is, I mean, now I'm in it more, but you know, it's been my entire life of, you know, darkness and shadow. Like, it's not like I'm like, woohoo, I wish I had this, you know, I was hoping I'd be born into this, and, you know, this be my gift. Like, it's been, I mean, obviously it's been like being in the trenches for basically my whole life. And yet, so it feels to me like the gift just comes, and it's obviously it's a profound blessing, and it's something that's, I would say it's a privilege, and it's also, what's the word that I'm looking for? It's like I mean, I don't know what the word is, but it's like, it's a stepping up and stepping in. It's an owning. It's saying, okay, this is what I came here to do. Like, and this is it. And if I, you know, oh, I wish maybe I was this other person doing this other thing. No, that's not actually what this is. So it feels like, again, it's coming from that deep listening. It's coming from, you know, like you say, like our lineage, our ancestors, the earth. Like, it's not necessarily something that we may have a preference for. And it's not always easy.
Well, it's not easy. Yeah. One of my teachers, he calls himself, he wrote a book called The Reluctant Healer. And it was just like he tried to avoid the path that he was supposed to walk, and kept getting these major initiations, which is I mean, we could call it the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, which is very much my life. And, you know, and if anybody ever wants to ask me about my life, it's like, really? And, you know, okay, I see, and I can either continue to try to make things hard on myself, that getting the gift through punishment, which I don't really want to uphold that original sin scenario in my body any longer. Or I can just start to trust and let it go and see what happens. I feel like taking a little pause for some reason and feeling like we're needing to come back to tying this into reproductive rights and some of the work that I do and why that gift is so important. And what we need to move out of the way collectively. So if you have anything to say about that or any other questions that came up before I felt like we needed to be redirected.
No, I think I was just more curious about it because it felt like it was another commodification that can happen.
Yeah.
And also I think, the piece that I'm like, you didn't really speak this, but I think this might be part of it, like that the gift that we each have that restores harmony in life. Like if we think about, we're in a new, we're not like thousands of years ago where people were living off the land and with each other in a different way. But it seems like having that gift and offering it is part of how we, part of how harmony and community and tribalism and, how we support one another. And so you didn't speak to that, but I'm imagining that that's part of kind of why the gift is also important. Like it both gives meaning and purpose, and it also ties us together inextricably.
Yeah, and it's incredibly selfless, it's our own personal healing really does matter, because in that you will find that place in yourself that wants to share. You find your belonging, and therefore you want to share your gift because you start to understand that if you're sharing your gift authentically, it's inspiring the gift in others, which then begins to feed. That's that feedback loop, right? It's the laws of reciprocity. It's why Native traditions lay down tobacco, before they harvest or when they pray, and all of the different rituals is that honoring of the reciprocal belonging and the true connected web we are all a part of. Yeah.
Beautiful. Great. Yeah, so let's take it in the direction that, back to especially reproductive rights, because I know that was something that you were wanting to speak on.
Yeah, and I know it feels, it's a little bit of a different path, but I've been working, like I said, with fertility challenges for close to a decade. And it links up with this whole cry, we can have it all. And I see that we are at this place where, with our reproductive rights and our reproductive freedom, well, we actually don't have reproductive freedom. That's a big lie. Because if we had reproductive freedom, life would not be in decline anywhere on the planet, period. And a lot of our reproductive rights are necessary. I mean, they are so necessary because there are millions of women worldwide within this country that are in unsafe conditions. And right now they are not in as privileged of a position as a lot of us, the ones who I'm speaking to, mostly the women that I work with, mostly, who don't really have other options right now. And I really feel that comes back onto the woman of privilege who does have options and who isn't doing that deeper listening. When I work with women and they're like, I want to do this and I'm going to do IVF and I'm going to do IUI and I'm going to take my birth control anyways, except for my body's saying all of these other things. There's no taking pause. And then what I'm seeing happen is that's translating and being projected around the world into actual marginalized communities, because we're not living in alignment with life. We're not living in alignment with our body. We're pushing past and going, well, I want this anyways. I'm going to do this anyways. Yet there's something underneath. But I actually also want my spirituality, and I also want to listen, and I want to, but I also want that other thing. And so we're not doing that deeper work of letting go. And so what ends up happening is we think that we're doing all this great activist work, and we're sending, which is really, again, necessary right now, but around the globe into marginalized communities where women are not safe and suffering. You know, we're sending programs around period positivity and, you know, giving them birth control and tampons, and creating structures that are based in our system, putting girls back in school where they're learning English and they're becoming part of the economy. And so great right now, but not really. If you think about it, if we take pause and go, wait a minute, we are now exporting our problem. And that has to happen for a little while, because we can't have women in these unsafe situations around the world, because then we're not doing our work. But it is up to us to stop and go, I have the ability to listen to my body and realize that this isn't just about me. And if my body's not producing life, it might mean that I'm not supposed to right now, and why. And what needs to be reclaimed, these old, beautiful practices of coming together, of listening to the body, of understanding that my reproductive freedom lies within my sovereign body. Like, I have absolute choice, without having to put a pill or a poison into me, to be able to say, no, I'm not getting pregnant now. Yes, I am. I know my cycle. I'm okay. Well, if I'm not supposed to have a child, I have to go in and do all of that work around, why did this happen? Clean it out. And there's not a whole lot of room in our wombs right now for new life to come through. And in some cases, because it's clogged up with a lot of this turning away from the ancestral traumas, our own not listening. And so there's just this pushback. We have the opportunity right now to actually reclaim true reproductive freedom and stand in that virtue of, oh, we are all connected. And if we come together and start to see the results of what a collected energy body of Western women can do, we might be able to shift the dynamics that we're looking at right now. And I know I'm not articulating this very well, because it's something that we're in the middle of, that I'm just starting to witness.
Well, you're articulating it well, but when you say shift the dynamics, can you give just a little bit of context, or a little bit more about what you see that shifting into, even if it's kind of a raw expression of it?
Yeah, well, for instance, back to the goddess culture, you know, and the commodification of the goddess culture. We are propping ourselves up on these pedestals, and now we're saying, oh, the goddess looks like this thing. Feminine power looks like this thing, and the rest of the world looks to a lot to the Western woman for direction. It does. I mean, the statistics show it. The economic statistics show that it does. And so if we're commodifying ourselves and saying that this has to look a certain way, then we're sending that message around into places that are then going to be subjected to patriarchy still. Like, oh, that I must have to be this certain way. I must have to do that thing. And it also makes it seem just completely out of reach. It's alienating for most of the world. So I don't think what I have seen in most of the women is there's this belief system within us, this thing we know, it's not a belief system, that when we're all gathered together, there's a potency and an energy that can be felt. It's like saying, oh, my vibration affects the other, that we are really all part of this web. And if we stand together and do this together, start to reclaim practices that are life inclusive, can that eventually over time start to be the example and start to shift first our home life, our work here in this, I mean, I say this country, and I guess I should probably give a little context why I'm speaking. I went to a Menstrual Research Society conference, and a lot of the work was about advocacy, menstrual advocacy, reproductive rights in the global South. And there was this huge shadow in the room of like, well, first of all, we're just projecting what we think they need without asking. And the majority of the women in that room had no, I won't say no, I take that back, had very little idea about their own body, about their own imbalances. They were like, oh, we're going to do this thing, and I'm going to like send this across the seas or into these marginalized communities within our own country. And I'm still just going to keep ignoring my own work. I'm going to keep ignoring the fact that my body is suffering, and my husband just left me, and my children don't talk to me. And, you know, it's but I still want to have it all, so I'm going to ignore all that, and I'm going to keep putting these things in my body to prop me up in this other way. When maybe if we just stopped and we did that work first at home, we would see a different, we would see a shift globally. I don't know. It's just an inkling.
Well, again, you're sort of speaking to like starting with ourselves, starting with our own bodies, right? Like, I mean, as women, and you're, you know, to what you said before, like in our communities with other women, right? Like that kind of contact, that kind of, I mean, I would say community, but also support, and even calling out, you know, even like when I say calling out, I mean like even like urging each other, or, you know, questioning, challenging, you know, in the service of having, like, deepening our relationships to our own bodies, our own wombs, and that, and our own hearts, and that deeper listening. Did she just freeze, Jamie? Well, we'll see if she comes back on. It seems to that she just froze. Ooh, well, let's see if she comes back on. We have had a pretty lengthy conversation about the shadow of goddess culture and how that relates to just the commodification of the goddess, and different feminine ways of being, and feminine rising into power. And we were also talking about how that relates to reproductive rights. Okay, so let's see if I'm going to try to add her again. I don't know why that happened. Thank you for those tuning in. Let's see. This is like the fourth technology problem we've had. All right, I was just giving a little bit of a summary of what we had been talking about, but and we've also been on, you know, we also
we're wrapping up.
We're wrapping up. I just want to make sure that you, like, if there's more that you want to say. And I was just speaking to kind of like, you know, that's starting in our community, with ourselves, and in our communities, and with our sisters, you know, and how we can kind of support each other in that process.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of.
Will you come up a little bit? You're low on the. Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of feedback. I can hear. It doesn't matter. Here's the deal. We live in Port Townsend, and nobody, unless you live here, you don't know, but we live in an energetic vortex. The wind has been blowing like crazy today and interfering with a lot of my communication. But what I would love to say, I'm getting feedback in my ear.
It's odd. You weren't before.
So what I would love to say is, when all women are in alignment with their hearts, following their heart, listening to their body, the earth will restore to balance, and really understanding what that means. And I just encourage that if there are whoever's watching, women or, men who love women, to just take a little pause and sit in some silence, listening to all of those places that we've turned away from, listening to where in our bodies there's pain, where in our lives there's imbalance, and see if there's a different voice that can be heard. I'm just going to wait for a second. One of the greatest gifts that I have received in the last year is having women authentically reach out, gather together for no other purpose other than to have witness and ask for help. And I've been encouraging some of the people that I work with to do this. So I will leave that with whoever is watching. But do yourself a favor, reach out to 10 to 15 women that you are close to and ask for some support, ask for some witness, ask for them to come and gather around you to just listen to you. For whatever it is you want to say from all of these places that you have shut down within yourself. In doing that for yourself, you give them permission to do the same. We start with the simple actions that are really brave, because then we lean into, will somebody show up? Do I belong? Do I know what to say? Where is my voice? I have so much shame around that thing. But then we start to see the medicine that is a result of something so simple, and that's how we start to redefine our wealth. Things in our life start to heal that we didn't even think possible. Our mothers start to heal. People come back into our lives we thought we lost. That deep pain and wound, that contraction and trigger that you were walking in the world with one day is gone the next. Simply through these acts of reconnecting, of listening, and following through on it. But it's hard, which is why we need to do it together. We need that encouragement together to say, where am I out of alignment? And then you see who you can trust and who can trust you. And this is especially important amongst women, because if we can't trust each other to really do this work, then the shifts and the healing and the voice and the virtue can't be followed. And the earth needs this work, not because she's dying, not because of any story, but because life is based in love, and we all deserve to live in harmony. We all deserve to live in a world that is safe, with our gift, in joy. We really do. Not because we're saving something, but because that's what love does, right? And before we go, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. This has been so, I'm just loving the spiraling energies that play. But I wanted to share a little bit about a 3-month online program that I'm putting out that starts in October. And it's my first online program, and I do openly talk about, like, how can I find the balance and really open that authentic container to be mirrored even in my leadership. But it is about finding the cosmology within the womb, remything the wound into your authentic voice, into your cosmology. We will talk about privilege. We will talk about pathologies of the womb. We will talk about intimacy and competition amongst women. Really, it's a space to be mirrored. It's traditional wisdom keeping. It's traditional mentoring. There is no path. It is completely designed around who shows up. And then we're going to go off what's alive in the moment and share deeply from our hearts. The encouragement is for me to support women in establishing these in-person relationships with themselves, with others, and also with Source, which we didn't even talk about here, but the life force that moves through us that we really, truly, I believe, long for.
Beautiful. I would definitely, for any women watching this who, feel a resonance with Jamie, I would 100% recommend her program, having worked with her, and also you know, knowing her really well and the program that she's about to do here that I know she's done some version of before in our community. Her work is just, it's so powerful, and it truly is a mentorship. Like, it's truly a mentorship with what you're talking about, you know, being in alignment with our bodies, our wombs, our hearts, and the earth, and, you know, finding a new way of being that where we really do feel in balance and in harmony and in love. So thank you so much for being on the show, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you everyone else for tuning in. My name is Lori Beth, and I do a lot of different things. I'm a space holder, a therapist, a somatic and energy healer, a movement teacher, and I combine all of that into, right now I'm doing basically one-on-one mentorships with women, and it's really about like awakening your soul power through the darkness. And similar to Jamie's work in a certain way, like, it's a mentorship because it's not about getting anywhere. It's actually about kind of mentoring with the dark and the shadow in order, like, really going into those places in order to have more of who you are. And because we can't just be our light, like we have to go into the dark. That is where our raw power is, and that is where our voice is and where our wholeness is. So if you're interested in working with me, be in touch. And I am in the process of putting all of these, all the videos, all of this show on YouTube. And so then all of these episodes will be easily recirculatable. Right now it's under my name, Lori Beth Goldman. That might change, and I will keep you posted. But Jamie's will definitely be there in the near future. So thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you again, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. See you
Right.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.